Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. My Tale of Survival. Part 1. Progress. Hello everyone. I'm a lurker here and thought to share my tale of survival here. But first, it's actually wonderful to have a subreddit like this to vent out, rant, ask for advice, talk to similar people who faced the same as you did. It isn't pretty and is an awful experience, but sharing it with someone relieves some of the pain and trauma. Me and my ex-wife were married in 2010, she was 22 then and I was 23. I was working on a stable job and had business plans to help my career out. 5 years after marriage, 2015, I decided to leave the job and focus on the startup. My wife decided to chip in so that her degree doesn't go into waste and she can also help me out with the finances. I agreed. It was nice to have an understanding wife like her. Things were going nicely, not without being rocky at times of course. My business took off and I was making profits by the end of 2016 after paying off bits of loans I took. Also, as I received inheritance, it was easy for me to pay off the amount and further invest in business. 2017 March, I decided to give her some money in the bank account as a security. It was the same account she puts her salary in, and decided to open up another joint account. In August, I see her increasingly being distant, like denying me sex, hyper-focused on phone, ignoring household works. We share the works, but she was ignoring her share. I did not think much about it as I thought she had her work to focus on. After 2 months, she comes up to tell me she has to go on a business trip for 2 weeks. It was a red flag and I saw something was off, as most of her work was taking care of finances. She's an accountant and it just didn't seem right. That same night, her sister called and said she would be going with her too. It was another red flag for me, as her husband can't go with her but her sister can. She convinced me. She told her boss she's also a female and a classmate of hers, that I'm an entrepreneur and I can't go, so she included her sister. I finally give in and she leaves for 2 weeks. Next day I found a bank receipt of around $7,000. Okay, it was strange for me. Why would she need this much amount for? I decided to call the bank. An acquaintance of mine worked there and lo and behold, her bank account had only $500 out of the $17,000. This was shocking. She would never withdraw money without telling me. I saw something was off and drove to her office, and guess what folks, I was warmly greeted by her boss. She knows me well, and she asked me how my wife was doing. I ask her what she means by that and she tells me my wife told her she's pregnant. I don't know what was going on. I kept calling my wife but to no avail. The next moment, I find myself blocked on social media. I asked her boss if something was up and she tells me that she was close to a co-worker and she and that co-worker decided to take leave together. I ask more about that guy and find out he's 25, 4 years younger than my wife then, and they used to hang out often. I bet she could see what was going on in my mind and she said I was overthinking, and she and I both know my wife and she could never do this. It is just my thinking, and maybe she went on a leave and didn't tell me about it. She was consoling me with this. I leave her office and call my and her folks in my house to tell them about it. Everyone was shocked and they kept calling my wife but to no avail. Her dad was embarrassed by this behavior and I could see the disappointment in his eyes. At this point I decided to call a friend of mine. He works in the IT department of the government, and ask for a favor to track my wife's phone via the email number. My father is a politician, so it wasn't hard to convince him, and after 2 days, I found out she never went on any trips out of the country as she told me before. She was at a hotel in another city. I had a classmate who is an officer near that city and asked him to check it out if she was there with anyone. Getting the hotel registry revealed she was there with that guy from the office, and her sister. Even more? They booked a suite. The blood in my veins boiled tremendously as I felt this spit on my face. Everything was crystal clear at this point, and I contacted my father's lawyer for this on the steps I could take if it revealed her affair. He recommended a family lawyer and he told me to gather evidence. explained how divorce proceedings work in my country, and if I have enough evidence to prove she betrayed her matrimonial duties, I can easily get a divorce without having to pay much. It will also be easy as we didn't have any kids. I asked her to start with the divorce proceedings, found out it can be cancelled anytime till the hearing, so it wouldn't be a problem if I find out I was wrong. I was hoping that I was wrong and my marriage was pure. She returned a few days later and said 2 weeks. I could instantly say she was a changed woman. She gave me a disgusted look as soon as she walked. She had spare key, no intimacy, hug, smile, nothing. I asked her how was she and how was the trip. She says it was alright and she is tired and needed rest. Asked her why it took extra days and she told me to grow up and it was a business trip. It isn't her fault it was extended. Asked her about her sister, she told me she headed home. We do not talk at this point anymore. The next day, she was overly loving and caring. After a call with her sister, her parents probably told her about me and I found out about the money. I just shrugged. It was holiday that day and I was home. At night, she went to the toilet. After checking if I was asleep, I was awake but pretended to be asleep so I can check her phone. She spent around 50 minutes in toilet. I could hear giggles, probably she was video calling and masturbating with AP. She went to sleep at 3 AM and I decided to snoop through her phone. She changed her password. Our agreed common password was I love spouse name. I tried but it won't open. Then I tried I love AP's name and voila, it opened. Saw the chats and pics she sent. They had a common group of her sister, her AP and another girl, I think was AP's friend. They had convos backbiting me, how my wife loved AP, how they dreamt of being together. My wife even went as far to say she wished I was there to see how much she loved AP and loathed me. This was it. My marriage reached at the point of no return. I absolutely knew then that my marriage was over, and sure I can reconcile but I won't ever be happy or accept what she did. Honestly, it wasn't the nudes, the chats, the lovey-dovey romances she did what hurt me. It was the lying, gaslighting as you guys call it, the pretending, the backbiting what hurt. I was working in here to give her better life and there she was backbiting and betraying me in the worst possible way. Sex was great between me and my wife. She chose that path because she was bored being a housewife and not enjoying the outings. She told me this in chat. I screenshot the worst part and the nudes, their I love yous, them backbiting, transaction messages. Also asked my officer friend to contact the hotel for a receipt of their stay and a video footage of them together. Hotels keep separate records of these. Next day I spend the entire time in office, completely isolated, smoking and drinking. Never did these in my entire life, and also printing out and contacting my lawyer about it. He said it's more than enough to show what she did. He already completed the formalities and I had the papers in my hand. Wife blew my phone up with calls the entire day as I left early without waking her up, but I didn't receive any calls. She cried at night asking me what was wrong and that she was worried about me. Oh, the nerve of this woman. I ask her if I really don't want to talk to her and we sleep separately that night. She again called AP that night. I overheard her from another room but didn't say anything. After she went to the office that day, I packed everything of her clothes and belongings and drove to her parents to show them what she did and that I had enough. I made separate copies of the evidence I found and gave them one. My still wife's sister was also there and she was shocked to the point that she couldn't even look at me. She straight away left for another room. Her mother was devastated, continued to ask me to give her another chance, hear her out and all. Her father had tears in his eyes. This military guy who fought in wars, spent his life giving others advice, had tears in his eyes. I can say he was greatly disappointed. He just shook my hand and said thanks for treating his daughter like a gentleman. That I was a son to him and he can never forget about me. It was heartbreaking to see him like this, but it is what it is. Next, I drove to her office straight to her boss, didn't even look at my wife who was with app. I saw the guy for the first time. He was, let's say, a kid with a sleazy attitude and no one in the office really liked him. My wife saw me and instantly dropped AP's hand and came to talk to me. I ignored her and went straight to her boss. AP and my wife were also there at that time. I laid all of my cards on the table. My wife dropped on her knees as she saw all the evidence and the divorce papers. I tell her that I dropped everything of hers to her mom's and she isn't allowed in my home. I also ask the boss to contact the HR and just give a look at AP to tell him I know everything about him and that he did a great job. Banging a married woman and stealing her from her husband is a great achievement to show. I leave the office with my wife begging and pleading with me in every possible way to take her back. The onlookers, her co-workers, were looking at her in pity as I left. I honestly didn't like a second of this. It was a mess. My wife never saw it coming and it was just like, she doesn't know what to do. She was blank. I did not reveal this to my parents yet and they found this out via my wife's family. Her mother pleaded with my mother to take her back and not ruin her life. Think about the defamation and her happiness before taking this step. My mom straight up told her that her daughter didn't think of defamation, my respect and happiness or my existence when she was happily cheating, and that her sister didn't even stop her after knowing but rather encouraged her. I knew my ex-wife would be coming to my apartment to see me and ask for forgiveness, so I moved out to my parents for a while and locked my apartment. 2 days later her sister came to my office. I told her I was having none of it, but she was making a scene, so I had no option but to give in and talk to her. Her sister cried and kept apologizing. She told me she didn't mean for this to happen and that she thought her sister had her right to enjoy life and feel young. I replied that I'm divorcing her, she can enjoy as much men as she wants now but she can't have me back. She told me her sister is suicidal and hasn't eaten for 2 days, just crying and begging to see me. She even went to my apartment but found it locked. She unblocked me from socials but I blocked her and I won't pick up her calls. She also said that her sister said I can also make it even by doing it with another woman, she won't mind and maybe we can give it another chance. Folks, this was it. I lost my mind. I called her sister the worst possible names a person could think of and insulted her and her sister, my wife. The whole office was looking at me as they never saw me this much angry. I told her they were pieces of trash, cowards who don't have the courage to face consequences. Her sister sent her in her stead so she could convince me, and finally asked her to leave as I'm not like her to compromise morals and sell my character, respect and marriage for fun. That she can marry AP and have a blessed life without me now that she hates me so much as she revealed in chats. She kept crying and asked me to reconsider again. I told her no and that she was out of my life now. She's a piece of trash I regret marrying. As she was leaving, I reminded her to ask her sister to sign the papers as it is, or I can have the hard way if she decides not to sign, and they will lose respect as well as I will hire the most dangerous lawyer to make her agree for the least in the worst possible way. I think this one is enough for now. It isn't over yet, but I think it's too long to post and doubt I can post it, so here it is. I will upload the divorce part ASAP. She tried to commit suicide after this but was rushed to the hospital. AP's situation got worse and both of them were fired. Thanks if you've made it this far and sorry for being so long. Also, I do not know what flares I use, so I apologize for that. My Tale of Survival Part 2. Update. Okay, firstly huge thanks for the amount of responses I got. I never thought this would mean so much. I literally got 16 chat invites. It means a lot. Before I start what happened next, I'd like to address some misunderstandings. Well, I'm from Asia. The laws, lifestyle, and culture are a bit different here. The population are huge, so it isn't unusual if you are friends with hundreds of people. So some misunderstood points. I didn't know my wife's boss before. I only met her once through my wife and we talked for 20 minutes after that. That was it. The next time I met her was when I inquired about my wife. The IT guy and officer were my classmates. Apart from them, I have more friends who are working in different walks of life. Another thing is I left out several parts where I cried intentionally, as it was really a mess and an embarrassing point to address. I literally thought of suicide the night I found everything via her phone. Now coming to the story. So after my wife's sister left, I started crying because I couldn't relate to anything. I never thought my wife, the woman I married, would do such a thing, even going as far to put an offer to make it even. It was tough. I called a couple of my best friends and asked them to meet at a bar. I revealed everything to them, and ironically one of them supported my wife's decision, saying maybe she lost the love she had for me. She was wrong to cheat, but maybe I should talk to her and explain to her if she wants to leave, she can. I was enraged to the point of hitting him if it wasn't for the other one. I never thought this guy whom I called my friend would advise such a thing. I politely asked him to leave, and after that another of my friends asked what I planned to do with her. I told him that I can't change what has been done, nor can I move forward and be with her reconciliation knowing she did the worst possible thing. I needed to let her go as it was better for both of us. She can still find someone to remarry, and so can I. He just held me and let me cry. My heart was pouring out as it felt someone was stabbing me and squeezing my heart. Next day, I called my lawyer and scheduled a date next week, for me, her and her father to talk at a restaurant that has private rooms for meetings. I'd if this exists in the West, but this part is important. For the first time after serving her the papers, I see her. She seemed like a zombie, dark circles, she was just her former self. My lawyer explains to her father about the divorce laws and that she can't get much assets or any money considering she took around $17,000, and if you can prove infidelity in my country, you don't have to pay much, but this largely depends on cases. My ex looks me in the eye and asks me if we can work it out. She said she will do whatever I say, she will leave the job, she already cut all contacts with AP, and she will earn back the money anyhow or take it from her father. I tell her it isn't possible. Then calmly, without any anger or emotions, I explain to her that I really don't want to work things out as the memories will remain forever. How I felt when her boss said she took a leave because she was pregnant, it ripped my heart out, and that it was the best choice for both of us. She tried to argue, but her father stopped her and said she will accept it. She gets mad at this and starts to shout at her father and me that how am I wrong and how hurt she is, how I don't trust her. A staff literally had to come and request us 2 times to keep the voice lower as they received complaints from other customers. We left the restaurant. I don't talk to her the following days. After a few days, I get a call from her father that she tried to commit suicide. I had to go to the hospital reluctantly after my mother convinced me, saying it wasn't for her. It was for me. If something happened, I won't be able to forgive myself. Her family was there and they basically told me she was trying hard to convince everyone how much she loved me and it was a mistake. Apparently the word of her cheating got out, and as we knew a lot of people, well, you might have guessed it. There was a lot of defamation and talking regarding this. She didn't want this and compiled with me not talking to her and her sister cutting off contact with her. She tried to cut her veins before her father noticed her behavior and stopped her. Doctor said she will survive, but there had been blood loss, and as she was weak before, she needed time to recover. I talked to her sister and she apologized again. I told her I forgive her because I literally can't keep up with this charade whatsoever. I explained her the same way I explained to my wife about the long-term problems which would duck us up. She again and again said it won't happen and how much her sister loved me. She realized her mistake and she wanted to be a better person. I realized talking to her won't do any good and left after talking to her father. I requested him to make her sign the papers as it is. The laws are tough and she can't really win a great deal. She gets to keep her account. She will receive a 1,200 square apartment flat that we purchased together and a spousal support for 1 year after divorce, or until she gets a job, that is. Now I could have settled for a fault divorce in which she won't receive a dime as we didn't have kids and it was an infidelity case, and also the fact I had evidence and she took out cash. But doing that would rob her years as a wife she was to me. Her father was a retired officer and didn't have much to spare after completing his daughter's upbringing, so that too made sense. 3 weeks after that, in which I kept contact with her father only to get her updates and any progress on the divorce. He called and he told me she signed it. Our divorce was completely final after 2 months of other formalities and re-verification. I got a call from my lawyer confirming it, and man, I couldn't thank enough for helping me out in this. I met my ex-wife in between these, and although she had the audacity to act cold, she was sad for it. She called me on the final day after confirmation and asked to meet up as a friend now that we are divorced. I told her no, but she kept pleading, to which I had to give in. We met up for coffee. BTW, she wore my favorite dress, kept her hair the way I liked, and applied the perfume I gifted her. She gave me a weak high and proceeded to tell me, basically giving closure, on how she met new young and free-minded people, and how despite not having a great age gap between them, she felt like an old-timer. How she met AP and connected with him on social media. Their talks intensified and they met up for coffee, becoming best friends over a few months' time. They started to hang out often, and one day when she visited his friend's party, everyone saw them as a couple and they kissed that night. She felt guilty but was also loving the attention of new young friends, and as time proceeded, she got carried away. They had sex in a hotel not far from my house. She told her sister and explained everything to her. She supported her, saying as long as it does not lead to divorce, she will help. Now she hates her sister for everything, and despite living under one roof, they don't talk. She also explained how she spent money on parties, expensive makeup kits which I didn't know she had, buying AP gifts and going to expensive restaurants. She spent the remainder on hotels. She further tells me she never thought this devilish part of her existed, that she backbited me and never thought I'd divorce her. When she received the papers, she woke up from her fantasy world and suddenly, everything around her felt different. She couldn't believe I'd do this, and I knew everything. She then told me if I can find it to forgive her and we can try dating each other. She realized that she loves me and she will do anything to convince me. She even said about giving up her mobile phone and all socials. I tell her again it's not possible and we aren't meant to be together, explaining she deserves happiness despite all this, and I too deserve them. It isn't possible to be together and be happy anymore, as neither of us can forget the memories. I tell her I forgive her and I want her to be happy and start afresh with someone new. Stay loyal to him and love him truly. I left her crying, but it was it. A week later I met her father alone. He thanks me immensely for being a generous soul and a gentleman. He talked about the wars and the friends he lost in it, but none of it hurt like losing me. He says he will always consider me his son and he will help me in whatever way he can if I ever need him. Can't believe, man, I was going to lose this guy. He was the best man I met. I was really close to him and he was always there for me, even to the point of driving to the hospital at 3 a.m. when my father suddenly got ill. It didn't start to get better immediately, as divorce costs me money and I find it hard to earn it back. Word started to get out of our divorce. Many of her and my friends knocked me asking about it. Some sided with her, saying she repented her decision and she was a changed person, but many sided with mine. After that, in 2019, I guess it was November, I found out she was dating a guy. Well, I was happy she got over me. Part of me felt a chill and pain, but it was for the best. I never tried dating or marrying again. My younger sister got married and she has a son now. My mom pesters me every day about marriage, but I can never find the courage to do so. Only I know what I faced and how difficult it was to face and fight. It was a fight against your feelings for your morals. August 2020 she remarried. It kinda hit me like a truck. I thought my ex-Phil would at least tell me about it, but nope. I found it in December, can't say I felt nothing. It hurt, man. 2021, I'm doing better than previous, less than in the future. I lost my wife, a person who vowed to share her life with me and my life with her. But I had my parents and my siblings, my friends and my business. I want to try dating, but part of me says to not. The trauma and the insecurities that I face still lasts today. I still get triggered sometimes and I don't want to include a pure soul in my already shattered world to hurt her with my insecurities and broken pieces. I know few might choose to believe this and few might not, I can't really help them. But if anyone has questions or wants to know anything or so, please comment down or DM. I'd be happy to reply. Lastly, And advice to all who are betrayed/wayward: your spouse, BF/GF might be going through a phase, might have earlier trauma, insecurities, might not understand you at times, might not give you what you want at the time, but that isn't your ticket to cheat. Cheating is betrayal, and it is the worst a person can do to another person. If you are not happy, end it. You took vows, promises to be with each other, to love one another. Do not ruin your morals and self-esteem for this. It's your life, I agree, but it also has a lot of people related to you who are attached to you. Your decision affects them. Thank you everyone for reading this. This was my story of survival. Sorry it's long again, embarrassed smiley face. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.